something other than grapes. We're gonna talk about pomegranates. Finally, I have something going on that's worth showing that's not the grapes. Pomegranates, it seems like we normally harvest ours here around just right before Thanksgiving. So we seem to be harvesting them 3 to 4 weeks early this year. But I mean, they can hold for a couple of weeks on the trees. The problem is, if you can see this one, here I'll pull it up. They start to split when they get too full. And if they're splitting, they're probably ready, but the birds are gonna get to them. The other issue is that while they're still, like, we've harvested some that have split and we still pulled the fruit out of it, the seeds. The issue is you're gonna start to get bugs and possibly like fungus or mold in there, so. All right, you can see here, I mean, they get pretty big. And there are little like thorn-like things on pomegranates. So a few things about pomegranates. I've read they can grow in a zone 6. That's pushing it. Zone 7, 8, 9, I think 10 is probably what you're looking at. So I would say zone 7 through 10, maybe 11 is, 7 through 10 is probably what you're looking at. Look it up online, you'll find it. But the problem is they can't really tolerate really cold temperatures. We did have a winter here a number of years back where it was like 2 years after we planted it. So it should have been the first year we got fruit. The same thing with the grapes that year. And we had just a historic snowfall, really cold temperatures for about a week. And it actually killed my grapevines and my pomegranate. And I thought they were completely dead. But in the spring, they started to come back. And so this came back on its own. Here in our area in southern Utah, St. George, this thing grows like a weed. I don't know if I could kill it. I'm sure it's had all sorts of things. I know it gets chlorine from the pool, and that seems to be okay with it. But yeah, so pretty good harvest this year, and that's after doing a pretty aggressive pruning or thinning of the tree back in the spring. And so I'll talk about that, or back in the fall, and I'll talk about that in a second. We've also already harvested off probably 30 of the pomegranates. The people that live here we wonder, why do they sell for so much in a store? Yes, they're amazing, but in my neighborhood alone, I mean, I see hundreds of pomegranates just waste on trees, and that's usually how we are. We don't usually get rid of all of our pomegranates. Okay, so the pomegranate itself, once it's established, it's actually drought tolerant. We have ours on a drip line, so it gets a little bit of water in there. It has enough of a bush now that it actually shades the soil and helps probably retain some of the water in there. But it's drought tolerant. Honestly, as long as it's getting some water for the first couple of years of establishment, not too much, it's gonna be okay. But it's not like your vegetable garden that you need to have on a drip line or sprinkler every night. This one, you could hit it once a week with a good soak and you'd be good. One of the big misconceptions that we ourselves kind of run into with this is that you see this outside, you see how red it is, you see that some are starting to split like this on the tree, and you think, let's harvest them all. I might have made that mistake once or twice. The problem is, this one, I would have bet money that it was ready to go. It hadn't started to split yet. It was a huge pomegranate. I have some that are splitting, but that's what it looks like inside. That's not a ripe pomegranate. You can eat that. It's not gonna taste near as good as what it should.
What should they look like?
By the flip side, this one was cracked open and then the birds and other things have been picking at it. I wouldn't eat that. I'll give it to my chickens, but you can see some of them are drying up and gross. So that's the right color, but that one's gross. So I'll give that to the chickens. They love it as a treat. I'm guessing that this one is ready. So this one just barely started to split. So one other thing is this juice from these, it stains. It's very red and it won't probably come out. But that is what they should look like.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, you can eat that. The seeds are edible. One way, what we've done sometimes on these as well, like we do with our grapes, we'll sometimes harvest all these out. It'll take a whole day. And then we will, we'll do it in a bowl of water. We'll show this in a different video, but that way all this pulp that's holding between it, that rises to the top and the seeds sink. And it's a good way to just kind of sift it out. And then you can dry them and put them in the freezer and save them. The one problem with that is that if you're gonna freeze them, they'll once you pull them out of the freezer, they're still great for cooking and things. They're preserved, they're fine, but they will the wall of them will start to break down after coming out of the freezer and thawing. So that's what they should look like.
A lot of people juice them.
Juicing is great. A couple things on juicing: if you are just trying to blend them, it's probably not going to work. These have a pretty big seed inside of them. The seed's edible. The problem is if you juice it and just cut open all those seeds, everything I've heard is that it becomes a little bit bitter. If you juice it with an actual juicer that's going to press them and not just cut that seed up, you're going to get the perfect sweet pomegranate juice out of that. And so we might try that this year.
Make some jelly with it.
You can make some jelly. I know down here there's something called Dixie salad. I've never eaten it, but pomegranates go on it. So
we make it for Thanksgiving.
So a few takeaway tips: you're gonna get messy, your hands are gonna get red. So, and the way I pick at them is I just keep on breaking the shell. I don't normally just throw it in my yard like that, but good. I just keep breaking the shell underwater, and then this is what I was talking about. This pulp rises to the top of the water, and you're left with the seeds at the bottom. And also keep in mind, these the flowers came out, I want to say the end of March, beginning of April. It's one of the last flowers that I get in my garden or backyard. But down here, we're already in hot weather in April. So it's one of the fruit sets April, May, the flowers, and you're harvesting your pomegranates here in October, November. So it's a long growing season. And if you've not had a pomegranate, I never knew what these were when I lived on the East Coast. But if you haven't had a pomegranate, you're gonna look at this one and think, that is ripe and ready to go. Maybe they're like that in a store, I don't know. I've never paid $5 for a pomegranate in a store. And some might be, but most of them aren't. In fact, let's just see what it'd be like if we crack into that. Yeah.
Oh, you're making such a mess.
So it's very white and pink. And I can eat that, but it's gonna be tart. It's not gonna be sweet. So if that's the experience you've had with a pomegranate, you're probably wondering why people like them. Because yes, it's edible. I wouldn't eat them that way. They should be looking a nice crimson color with a tiny bit of white in it maybe, but deep crimson. All right. We'll post a video here in a couple of weeks. It looks like I still have maybe another week or two to harvest some of the bigger ones. So I'm gonna wait and harvest those right after Halloween, see if they last that long. I think they will. And then at that point, we'll do a day where we just break them apart and show you how it's done, kind of like we did with the grapes. Okay, thanks for watching.